Good afternoon, YouTube. This is the Pork Chop Piper coming to you from the Pacific Northwest. I am participating in a slow smoke competition for YouTube, for the YouTube pipe community, sponsored by the Paladin Piper. Hey, Pat, thank you very much for including me in your little party here today. I've been smoking pipe on and off since the 80s. I'm a retired sailor, so there was just something really special about standing watch topside with a pipe in my mouth, feeling the wind, and wishing I was below decks because it was usually cold in Groton, Connecticut. But the pipe seemed to make it go a little better. And I thought it was very sailorish to smoke a pipe. So here we go. This is our competition for today. I am going to be smoking my Orlick. You can see it's two fingers. And we're going to be smoking some Captain Black Royal. Here are my two matches. Here we go. Two matches. And my wood tamper, which actually is a stone I was working on that I broke. So we'll use this end of it as the tamper. So let's begin. Here I have my bowl. That's my measuring bowl. And I'm putting it on my scale, and I think you want to watch this. There we go. Putting it on my scale. Turning on the scale. Come on. All right. As you can see, it reads 0 grams. Sorry about the camera work. This has got to be a frickin' nightmare for you guys. I'm a rookie at it. And I will take and weigh out 3 grams of tobacco. This happens to be my friend Judith's favorite tobacco. So I save it just for her. There we go. 3 grams. All right. So take this back a little bit. For those of you who are wondering, I am in my shop. It's a woodworking shop and a lapidary shop. I am retired, and I was told to take up a new hobby, so I decided that lapidary would be a cool thing to do. I don't own any lapidary type. I'm stacking my pipe. I'm packing my pipe. I don't own any lapidary art, but I'm interested in rocks. I think they're beautiful when they're polished up. And I don't know. There we go. Get a little more in there. I hope this isn't too terribly boring for you, but if it is, we're slowing down. That's what this is all about. How to appreciate the time you have left, and you appreciate it with friends. Okay, there's my pipe. See, it's loaded. A little bit of tobacco left. Not much. And here's a match. Match number 1 for the toasting light. There we go. Now, believe it or not, I just did a slow smoke competition in the fall, and it was sponsored by the Kitsap Pipe Club, of which I'm a member, and it is a pretty robust organization, actually. We meet the last or the fourth Saturday of the month at one of the members' homes in their garage, because they've got a great big garage, chock full of chairs, and it is the most eclectic, friendly group you'd ever want to meet. There's a couple of folks on there that you might recognize from the YouTube pipe community. Doug Owen from the Cargo Hold in Paulsbo. The Northwest Pipe Smoker, Tom. And I think that's all for now. There may be more that I don't know about. I've got my Diet Coke. And I'm in my shop. It's a good smoke. It's in what I call a quiet aromatic. I don't know what all the components are and how to recognize them. The Latakia, Perique, the Burleys. I know what I like. Lately I've been smoking some Northwoods and 965. Those are my favorites right now. Yeah. But this is good. Like I said, I have a friend named Judith. I go over and visit her a couple times a week. And we sit out on her back deck and she tells me stories of England. And I enjoy her company. Run errands for her. Sit and have a quiet chat. She's my friend. So, the Kitsap Pipe Club. I stumbled upon it when I was at the Cargo Hold getting some tobacco from Doug. And he invited me, as he does probably most of the people who come in. But I thought, well, what the heck, I'll give it a whirl. What a wonderful group. And we are an eclectic group of men and women. I would say, I think some of our younger members are in their late 30s, up to 80 plus. Very informal. And good humored. Yeah, good humored. Yeah, it seems to be going all right. The slow smoke competition that we had, I did not win the matches, although I was willing to learn how to win the matches. But I think my friend Tom, he won it. Of course, I think he wins them all the time. He tends to talk. He's a very social smoker. He doesn't like to smoke a pipe by himself. Sometimes he'll go online to the YouTube pipe community and just share his pipe with them, with us, and share his wisdoms of the world. This is very good. This is my shop. It's kind of messy, but it's mine. I have a pair of workbenches. One faces away from the window and the other one faces the window. And it's quiet right now. Usually, it's pretty noisy. I have a vacuum system that runs through the shop as well as a filter system. So when I'm out here making dust, sawdust, the filter system is running hot and heavy. And I'm usually really bad about cleaning up after myself. But I'll try to do better in the future because I don't think this will be my last shot at YouTube. I think it'll be my beginning of a new adventure. Some of the folks I follow on the YTPC my memory is a terrible thing. I like Mutton Chop. I enjoy him. And Mike over at Old Man Things. He's just a sweetheart of a guy. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I was very familiar with winter life there and how it kind of controls everything. They've had a real snow drought this year, though, from what I understand. It kind of blows hot and cold. But my sister, who lives up north in northern Wisconsin, where they hold the snowmobile Grand Prix world races, she was telling me that they really depend on that snow, that winter, for tourist income. Apparently snowmobilers like to drop a lot of money. And the expensive snowmobile gas is like $7 a gallon, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, they make some money on that. As for myself, I left Wisconsin when I was in my early 20s, joined the Navy, and never looked back. I love my family, and I go visit them from time to time. Probably not as often as I should. But, you know, traveling long distances, unless I'm flying very comfortably, you know, driving is okay. But, you know, I don't like driving at night. And I don't like some of the excitement that you find on the road. I hope that I'm abiding by the rules. As I was saying, I grew up in Wisconsin, and when I joined the Navy on April Fool's Day, I tried to convince them it was a big old joke, and they didn't buy it. But when I joined the Navy on April Fool's Day, When I left the house at 5 a.m. to go up to the in-dock station, I had to shovel 6 inches of snow off of my sidewalk. That reminded me why I went to San Diego for boot camp. You don't do push-ups in the snow out there. I had a wonderful career in the Navy. Started out as an enlisted man. Was blessed with one of the greatest ships that any submariner could ever ask for. The city of Corpus Christi. When I got there, it was USS Corpus Christi. I'll tell you a story about that some other time. But I was on that ship for a long time. Long time. When I finally transferred off, I was teaching sub school in Groton, Connecticut. And the days were not nearly as long as they were on a submarine. Working 18-hour days on a submarine was not uncommon. Back then, it was the height of the Cold War in the 80s. The Navy was always looking for submariners, but it's an all-volunteer force. So if you don't volunteer, you don't go. Anybody who tells you they got drafted into the submarine force is telling you a line of BS. But I'm a proud submariner. And teaching sub school had a little more time on my hand. I decided that I'd put myself through college. And with the help of the Navy, I was able to earn my bachelor's degree. And went off to OCS and went right back to the submarine force. As an officer in the submarine force, I got to do a lot of exciting things. Got to pay attention to my bike. I'm talking too much. There. Tamp this guy down. There. That excitement I can't tell you much about, although I can tell you one interesting thing. When I was the ship's diving officer on USS Lafayette, the squadron medical officer, Lieutenant Dr. Laurel Clark, came on board for a part of our underway period, our deployment. And she was earning her undersea medical officer dolphins. And part of that was she had to finish qualifications on board the ship. There were certain things that she had to know and had to be taught. But I had the honor of teaching her to be a diving officer. Some of you may know or recognize the name Dr. Laurel Clark. She was one of the astronauts who was killed in a space shuttle explosion. She's from Racine, Wisconsin, my hometown. We got along. It was a little touch and go to begin with. And then I told her where I was from. And she said, no, not really. I said, yeah. I told her I went to high school. She went to the Crosstown High School. So we laughed about that a little bit. And we got to know each other. And what a talented young lady she was. She also took care of a number of medical issues that we usually have to wait until the off-crew period to get taken care of. And became a real asset to the crew. I think about her every now and then. Kind of sacrifice she made. There we go. Yeah. I like to sit out on the back deck, smoke my pipe. Sometimes I sit in my hot tub and smoke my pipe. And living out here in the Pacific Northwest, as long as you're not afraid of a little rain, you can do that. It does have a good taste to it. There we go. I watched a video that Matches 860 put up about how to do a video on YouTube for the YouTube pipe community. And I think I'm violating some of those rules because he more or less said, when you run out of meaningful things to say, you should turn off the camera. And I haven't run out of meaningful things to say. I just don't know what they are yet. I'm a voracious reader. And truth to tell, my secret passion is watching cooking shows. I like to watch Chris Kimball on Milk Street, Cooks Illustrated. I even like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I don't like the cooking competition ones so much because I think cooking is a bit like pipe smoking in that regard. It is not always the end result that you're after. It is the process. Somewhere around here I have a smoking lamp. Well, it's in my toolbox. I'll break it out next time. Just a stupid little thing that says the smoking lamp is lit. Ed, being a sailor like I am, you could only smoke when the smoking lamp was lit. Although strangely, back in the early 80s, smoking was authorized on board the ship in authorized areas. In other words, you could smoke on the mess decks, but not during meals. Smoke in the wardroom, but not during meals. But then there were all ships evolutions that you couldn't smoke. Couldn't smoke during a casualty. Couldn't smoke during a battery charge. Pesky old hydrogen. Couldn't smoke during a diesel fuel loading operation. Or a lube oil operation, I think. All those rules are written in blood. As the years progressed, the tolerance for smoking became, well, intolerance for smoking. I used to smoke cigarettes back then, saved the pipe for when I was topside, or a cigar. And we would live, our lives revolved around a 6-hour watch. If you were lucky, you shared your watch responsibilities with 2 other people. You would be on watch for 6 hours and then off for 12 hours. During those 12 hours, you would try and get some sleep, do your training, do your maintenance, do the ship's drills, and have a little relaxation. So it was not uncommon for us to live on this 18-hour day. The only time you knew basically what time it was in Zulu time was what meal they were serving. If it was breakfast, you had that figured out. Lunch and dinner, that was a toss-up. And then there was midrats, which usually consisted of sandwiches, soup, some kind of leftover stuff. And crew favorites were pizza, weenies and beans, and sliders, burgers. Most ships saved their burger meal for Friday because they'd wake up the crew at 7 o'clock and start a field day, which usually lasted a few hours. And after that, a field day is clean the ship, top to bottom, stem to stern. And everybody participated. The officers would be out overseeing things. Sometimes they were out cleaning their own staterooms. But it was important. A clean ship is a happy ship. I know that's corny to say, but it's true. Then after field day was over, we would go into burgers, sliders. And those cooks could make some great ones. Usually served with beans, French fries. If they had salad available, they'd put that out. But salad, like milk, never lasted very long on a boat. Perishable stuff like that goes quick. If it didn't come out of the freezer or a can, we usually didn't eat it. So where I was going with all this is that sometimes you'd miss a sleep cycle in those 18 hours, which meant that you do your 6 hours on watch, do your 6 hours doing maintenance, and then another 6 hours doing drills, clean up ship, training, lots of training. I think by the time I retired from the Navy, I was in the 34th grade. Or at least it felt that way. But sometimes you'd miss that 6 hours of sleep, or just a few hours of sleep in between, and you'd pull a 24. And if you had more things to do once that watch was over with, it could be 40 hours before you get back to sleep. So I have a certain soft spot in my heart for nurses and doctors who work those incredible hours. I know what it's like to have to be sharp after being awake for 30 hours. And then finally drag your butt back to bed. Get in your bunk. And if you were junior enlisted, your bunk might not be empty, because when you're a junior enlisted man on a submarine, you do something called hot racking. And that's what the name implies. When you're climbing into a rack, it's probably still warm from the guy who just got out of it. So you had to go search for one of your 2 racks that you had available to you, because somebody's always on watch. But back to being on watch. I smoked cigarettes then, and standing the mid-watch from midnight until 6 in the morning required a lot of coffee and a lot of nicotine. Those 2 elements kept me alive and awake. There would be days that I would smoke an entire pack of cigarettes in that 6-hour watch, and just keep the coffee coming. And back then it was real Navy coffee. Came out of a 20-pound can. And we always had coffee, because you wouldn't want to be the leading cook or the supply officer that ran out of coffee while you were underway. You'd be pretty unpopular. That's kind of the one limiting factor for submarine endurance. Food. You got 130-ish people on board, men and women now. And they serve 4 meals a day to those sailors who headed back aft to work in support of the reactor, or headed up forward to work in support of the weapon system, meaning sonar and fire control, radio. And then the ship's control party, the guys who were driving and diving. If you see videos about the older submarine force in the 80s, take a look at the control station for the ship. It looks surprisingly like an aircraft. And when you think about the concept of aerodynamics vice hydrodynamics, they're not dissimilar. The hydrodynamics just tend to operate a little slower. Those are good years. When I retired from the Navy after 25 years, I stayed working for the Navy in a couple of capacities, always in support of submarines. Finally retiring after a total of 42 years. And now I volunteer. I also like to sing. I'm with a choral group out of Bainbridge Island, a group called Crescendo. A bunch of adults who get together on Monday night and rehearse, and a couple times a year we get together and have a show. Get some money, or earn some money that way to keep the organization afloat. I also do volunteer work for the local theater groups. I like to build set pieces. Someplace, well, in the future, I'll put up some of the things that I've constructed. From entire sets to just pieces for that set. Heck, I even built a replica of a grand piano for one of our local schools. Turned it into a bookshelf form. It was a lot of fun. Got a couple of kids. They're on their own, and they're doing super. There we go. Oh, yeah. So, the slow smoke that I participated in had rules that were very similar to these. The two matches were allowed with the intent that you would use the first match as a charring light, and you had 2 minutes to get your pipe lit once the clock started going. And we actually had referees, if you will. People who were doing, one of our members, he likes to smoke cigars. So he was kind of like the referee. And this, back to the two matches, I'm sorry, I kind of drift around a little bit. The second match was used to, after you got your charring light done, to get your pipe going. And that was it. Once you're out, you're out. And one of our members, Will, he won it for the second year in a row. He's also a submariner. There's a few of us. He went for more than an hour. I did not. Oh, I just burped. Excuse me. Let's see what else. I made a list of things to make sure I covered while we were talking today. Let's talk about the YTPC. There's recently been some kerfuffles about, I don't know, religion and politics. And one of our unwritten but certainly announced and spoken rules at the Kitsap Pipe Club is there's no talk of religion or politics. Everybody has their views. when it comes to stuff like that. But they're also very private, so we keep them that way. I think it's better. I think about half of the folks on the YTPC, the presenters. I try and catch as many of them as I can. And I realize that it's hard work to put on a video like this. So if and when I would start doing it, I kind of promised myself I'd follow Matches 860, and that he always had something he wanted to talk about. And he usually picked a good spot. I liked it when he would go ambling around in the woods, find a nice comfy spot, set up his phone and start shooting. I love Mike's Frog and Toad. It is the quintessential pub that I remember from my time in Scotland. My memory was some of the pubs I went to weren't significantly larger than Mike's Frog and Toad. And always cozy. Scotland was a good place to smoke a pipe. It seemed to fit. And here, in this little shop of mine, a pipe seems to fit. I can take my time. I can draw designs for furniture I want to build. Maybe work on some stones. Maybe even break a stone every now and then. You can see there, I broke that one off right there. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. It's going to have to tell me. I've got some old speakers in my, you can see them right here, here and here, that I got from a friend. And they're old Bose 901s, I think. 901s or 301s, I forget. I've got the music that I always play while I'm down here. Pay attention to your pipe, Tom. But anyways, we were talking about the YTPC and some of the presenters. And they are an eclectic bunch. But I don't know that I've uncovered any women who were part of the YTPC. We have a woman in our club. She's marvelous. So smart. Real pleasure to chat with. Her husband brings her along. He goes out and does some chores. Makes the Costco run. Some of the other things that need to be done during the week. While she stays with us. Sometimes we have a little bit of scotch. Sometimes we don't. Water's on the house. Some guys bring thermoses with coffee. I find that many of the members, have beards. Except for Melita, she doesn't. As much as I like a beard, I find the itch. This is about as scruffy as I get. Come on. Keep it going. This video's gone on longer than I thought it would. My sweetie pie doesn't seem to mind that I smoke a pipe. She's pretty tolerant in that regard. I've got a pretty big pipe collection. Not as big as many, but about 40 of them. I made a pipe rack to go in the dining room to put my beautiful pipes on display. And I have my corn cobs for down here in the shop so that when I drop them, they still stay intact. Or if I break them, they're pretty cheap to replace. Just about done here, I think. Yep, getting there. It's odd sitting here watching myself smoke a pipe. But it's about the process. And that about does it for me. Looks like we're down to ash. So that does it. I will prepare to put this up, and we'll see what happens. Take care. Thanks for letting me play along.